There's still no official cause of death for Matthew Perry, who passed away last Saturday. Now, Matthew was found in his hot tub and died of an apparent drowning. There are reports his body wasn't in the water long before first responders got to him. Initial tests ruled out an overdose due to fentanyl or methamphetamines, but an official cause of death could actually take months. Meantime, his friends' castmates released a brief statement a few days ago saying, quote, "They are family and they're utterly devastated." Some fans decided to honor Matthew by dressing up as his friend's character, Chandler Bing, for Halloween. Chandler's bunny costume from the Halloween episode, oh, I loved that, was a big hit. And this fan posted her costume from the episode where Chandler tries to quit smoking. Others dressed up as Chandler from the Thanksgiving football game. Tori, you're nodding your head. Do you think it's too soon to dress up as Matthew Perry?
And I realize it's just a few days ago. I was thinking about that as I was watching those kids. A lot of this generation, like Taylor and certain kids, adults who work here who are younger than us, watched Friends as a repeat on Netflix when it was syndicated. They just over and over watched it.
That's what my kids did with Fresh Prince.
Yeah, and it became this kind of thing. So my younger cousins love Friends. And I think how they relate and communicate is by doing those TikTok videos and dressing up and lip syncing. And that's how they relate their emotions. So that girl, she's seen that scene a bazillion times when she's sick in bed, when she doesn't feel good. So that scene and her doing that is somewhat cathartic in a weird way, and a lovely thing that Matthew Perry would be like, I was there in your living rooms every Thursday night, and for these new generation, I'm always there for you. That's the theme song. I'll be there for you. I know I'm corny, but that's real.
Beautifully.
Yes, beautifully.
Oh, thank you. Please, thank you, Erica. Thank you.
I think it comes down to the spirit in which things are done, because for the last couple years, I've done icons, Nichelle Nichols and Tina Turner.
And you hinted at Whitney Houston.
Yeah, right, because that's my way of paying homage to icons who I really love. But I also think that there's a way, and I think that by showing it this way, that's totally different than when Steve Irwin died.
Totally.
And then that Halloween, people were dressing up with stingrays through their bodies. That, to me, is a completely different conversation than finding your best Chandler clip and doing something to honor that.
Yeah, the intent. I think that's important to know, so thank you. Okay, so you guys, Robert De Niro is facing off yet again with his former assistant in court yesterday. So he's being sued for $12 million over claims he caused her emotional distress. While on the stand, Robert admitted he thought it was okay to call his assistant while she was at her grandmother's funeral. He said he wasn't sure if they were putting the body in the ground or at a wake or something else. Now, at one point he said, yeah, fine, I berated her, but denied he was ever abusive. The assistant claims he subjected her to years of abusive language and unwanted physical advances. Before you all chime in, I'm going to give you both sides of the story as what's been presented in court, okay? So she claims that he once asked her to scratch his back. Okay, that's one thing that she thought was crossing the line. Another was she said he called her to go to his restaurant Nobu at 11 p.m. to get himself a particular martini. She thought that was crossing the line. Also, the fact that she said that he called her a snippy, spoiled brat, which he does not deny. So the assistant, though, according to De Niro, it wasn't. She didn't work specifically for him, even though she did. It was his production company. She worked there for 11 years. She reportedly made $300,000, and he accused her of improper spending. And even though he did give her access to his mileage and said you can take some of the miles, he said she grossly abused that, allegedly, by transferring millions of airline points from the company to her personal account. Now, how do we feel hearing both sides, Jeff?
$300,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to point that out. I don't know. You guys made some interesting points, Erica. You said it was very generational.
Yeah, I do think it's a generational discussion.
I do see that side.
Can you explain more about what do you mean with that?
Well, what my side is more with Robert De Niro, and I've looked at the comments, and they are not with Robert De Niro. But if someone is my assistant for 11 years, I don't think it's inappropriate to say, hey, I got an itch, could you scratch my back? We just take things and put them on here and take them out of context. If you know someone for 11 years, they're trying to make this like a victim of sexual assault. That's not a victim. That's being, hey, we're friends. You're my employee I'm paying you a great amount of money. $300,000 a year is more than all of us make. You can't go to Nobu at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, how many martinis do you want? Right.
Like the way we pose it in
I'll
the
give you all the
script
martinis.
makes Robert De Niro sound really bad.
But Jeff,
and so how you pose things, the way you point out the facts makes me take the complete other side. So it's how you tell the story. And I think the whole point of this is generational. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but if you ask a 20-year-old, they might think something's wrong.
Well, I think the difference for us, it's weird. It's almost like the people who are in between digital and analog. We're kind of in between the overtly bad, crazy bosses and then the not so, or like covert, because it's happening no matter what. And it's really a tit for tat situation. As opposed to being able to be demonstrative about your anger, it comes out a little bit more, not as obvious, where you can't be like, this is what happened to me. I prefer an overt relationship. I want to know exactly what I'm signing up for. Because to be honest, I have dealt with some of these things far more, like things being broken over my head type things for less than $300,000. And honestly, when people can't afford to pay their rent or their cost of living, it does change the dynamic. I'm not saying that there is a price for how much you'll accept in order to be abused. I just think that the idea of having this conversation needs to be at least addressed, that it's a generational divide.
Erica, I think we're talking a lot about the employee, but I think we need to also talk about the employer, because a lot of our viewers, because social media has kind of dropped the barriers that you needed to access your market, are going to develop, hey, I make stitchings and I started selling enough where I needed to hire another person. Well, we're in a different world now where everything is heightened to the nth degree. I broke up with my fiance. She took everything I owned. I don't think that would have happened in 2006. If Eric and I are working together and we split, one of us has got to accuse the other one of trying to run over children in the street, because that's the way you get money in court now.
Right.
And there's no scruples when it comes to taking somebody's name and dragging it through the mud, accusing somebody of sexual assault, which is a heinous, the most disgusting thing I can think of. And people just throw it around, kind of toss it around, just a little garnish on the side of a plate. And it really does. And I'm just saying, for any future employer, you need to protect yourself.
Right.
If you need to hire somebody, you need to think once, twice, 3 times, and then figure out if there's an app for that. I am sorry, but you cannot. You are so vulnerable as an employer.
I think you're right, Al, but you're vulnerable as an employee as well.
Yeah, you are.
I think that the conversation needs to be addressed by on both sides, because I do think that there is a way of being covert about what is actually happening. People have gotten so great at it, because the truth is, if you do it in a way that you don't have this is exactly what happened, it's like people talk about feelings, but sometimes it does come down to a feeling.
Okay, but we're talking about millions of airline miles of possible embezzlement, and then
on both sides, you have to be.
Don't you think they're both right and wrong here? They're
No.
both right.
I do.
They're both right.
Yes.
They both acted.
Yes.
Not if she stole from him.
But if he, again, vague, if he said you could have, I'm wondering, it is vague. I'm just saying, no one is really the victor here. No one's the villain.
But there's a difference between being,
yeah.
There's a difference between
That's
being.
why I can't hire. I would never hire anybody.
Yeah.
You're one of the smartest people I know, and I cannot believe
I tend to agree more with Jeff here, because at the end of the day, first of all, when you're a celebrity assistant, $300,000 means that you, and I've had friends and family that have been assistants to very high powered people, and literally it'll say, I'm going to call you sometimes at midnight.
I need a martini.
To take me to the airport, or this or that. That's why you're getting paid $300,000. It's more money than any one of us make, and this was years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that, and also, just because he was a jerk,
right,
doesn't mean that it is criminal
or libel
And you can't just take things nowadays, and people misuse and overuse the term racism, homophobia, rape. What are you talking about? Rape does not equate to scratching my back. Just because you got fired because you're not good at your job doesn't mean any of those other isms are true about the person that you're accusing, because you want to up the value of the lawsuit.
And
that's where we're at.
I think they both did.
And we're wondering why AI is taking over, because people don't want to hire people like that.
Erica, final thought.
I think there's other reasons for that too, but I think the difference between the divide between what Al said, or Al's feelings, and Tori, is that it is so seldom that anyone is 100% right about anything. anything. And the idea that you don't have flexibility of thought on either side is really ultimately the reason why a lot of people get in trouble. Because let me tell you, communication would resolve so many things. But after 11 years of working together, lines have been blurred on both sides.
It's just a gray area now.
On both sides. And the communication for whatever, it just isn't there. But people have a lot of ego. They don't want to be honest about what their feelings are. And then you end up in court. So many people would be out of court if they would just have an honest conversation.
But the conversation now is with a phone in my pocket and say something wrong because I want to win in court.